If she's annoying, yeah, it's annoying. If someone's asking you questions and you're getting really fucking annoyed, it's probably not the question.
Because you have a lot of people that are like this, that are huge Rachel Zegler fans that hate Gal Gadot.
I never wanted to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. When I tell you that it's hard, I just...
Oh gosh, Douglas, this remake is reportedly to have cost more than $200 million, and Disney seemed too scared.
It probably won't be the worst movie ever made, but it also could just not exist and it would be fine.
Snow White hit theaters, and it did so with a thud that echoed across Hollywood. Fans were outraged, theaters were half empty, and the movie was panned by critics. Headlines across the internet read, like a funeral dirge for a film that had once been poised to lead a new wave of live-action Disney remakes. But what was even more shocking wasn't just the backlash. It was that Joe Rogan had already called it. Months before the movie's release, he had laid it out clearly on his podcast. This movie was going to flop hard. And flop it did. Rogan didn't sugarcoat anything. He took aim at everything from Zegler's political rants to her tone-deaf performances and the disastrous decision-making at Disney. Rogan looked at the chaos surrounding the movie, the casting controversies.
Rachel Zegler, Gal Gadot. This person, I fixed it. I was bored. So basically just Photoshop Gal.
Rumors are swirling around now that Disney is canceling the Snow White remake, or they're hiring a new actress to replace Rachel Zegler.
The bizarre CGI choices and Zegler's increasingly polarizing public persona, and made the simple but bold prediction: this thing is going to crash. And, as it turns out, it did so in spectacular fashion. From the very start, Snow White faced uphill battles. The backlash began even before the film was finished. Zegler, the actress cast to play Snow White, made waves with her controversial opinions about the original 1937 animated film, which Disney fans had loved for decades. In interviews, she openly criticized the character of Snow White, calling her diminishing and problematic in a time of increasing cultural sensitivity. The backlash was swift and intense, with fans questioning whether Zegler, who was about to take on one of Disney's most iconic roles, even understood the significance of the character. But it wasn't just her comments about the classic Snow White that upset fans. Zegler's
new poster for Snow White. Right here with Gal Gadot in the background. There's Snow White. There's the evil queen.
No, I kind of just let it all, the chips fell where they did, because I was really overwhelmed with the response to it.
Personality, her political outbursts, and her increasingly infamous public statements only fueled the fire. She wasn't just playing a character in a movie. She was embodying a highly divisive, polarizing figure. And it didn't stop there. Zegler made headlines for her various political stances, which didn't go unnoticed by the public. In 2020, during the heat of the presidential election, she posted an incendiary Instagram story urging Trump supporters to never know peace. While some applauded her passion, others criticized it as a reckless and divisive statement from a public figure, especially one who would be representing a family-friendly Disney princess. Joe Rogan, never one to shy away from pointing out uncomfortable truths, didn't mince words when discussing Zegler's comments on his podcast. Rogan was baffled by her actions. Come on, you're a Disney princess, and you're out here telling people to never know peace? What are you doing? Rogan exclaimed. He made the point that Disney, a company known for its wholesome, family-friendly brand, had made a questionable decision in casting someone whose online persona was so controversial. Disney has this whole thing about being family-friendly, right? Rogan continued. But then you've got their Snow White basically telling half the country to go to hell. It's just bad optics. As the backlash grew, Rogan's critique didn't stop there. He brought up the bizarre performance Zegler had delivered during the hashtag Free Britney movement, where she read aloud Britney Spears' tweets in a dramatic and over-the-top fashion. Rogan, ever the critic, wasn't impressed. Is there some unwritten rule that if you're an actress, you have to perform everything like it's Shakespeare? He quipped, mocking her theatrics. By now, it was clear that Zegler's public persona, combined with Disney's lackluster handling of the situation, had turned what was supposed to be a nostalgic return to a classic fairy tale into a cultural disaster. As if things weren't already bad enough, the Snow White trailer itself became a lightning rod for criticism. Released in August 2024, the teaser for the live-action remake was supposed to build excitement for the movie. Instead, it became the most disliked trailer in YouTube history, amassing nearly 1 million dislikes in just a few weeks. The internet's reaction was so intense that fans had to download browser extensions just to get an accurate count of how many people were expressing their disgust. The controversy centered around a combination of things: Zegler's casting, the bizarre CGI dwarfs, and Disney's decision to change the beloved characters in ways that fans felt were completely unnecessary. Former Disney creatives, including Jim Schull, an Imagineer who had worked with the company for over 30 years, even suggested that Disney might want to skip releasing the movie in theaters altogether and go straight to streaming. But with the way things were going, Schull's advice might have been too little, too late. The buzz was toxic, and it was clear that the once celebrated Snow White had turned into a cursed property. When the film finally hit theaters, it was a full-blown cultural meltdown. It wasn't just a box office bomb. It was a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with Disney's recent attempts at live-action remakes. The film's release was plagued by complaints from fans, critics, and even former Disney employees. Zegler's performance was dissected, her comments were criticized, and the CGI dwarfs, which had been a major talking point since the trailer, were described as downright creepy. The movie's Rotten Tomatoes score, a dismal 46%, reflected the general public's disdain. In the days leading up to the film's release, Disney's hopes were clearly dashed. The company had poured between $250 and $300 million into the production, but early box office tracking suggested it would struggle to break even. When the numbers came in, Disney was forced to confront the fact that Snow White was a monumental failure. Fans had turned on the film, and it was clear that Disney had failed to learn from the mistakes of previous live-action remakes. Joe Rogan, ever the observer of cultural phenomena, had seen this disaster unfolding from the start. His blunt honesty about the situation had not only made him a prophet, but also turned him into one of the most vocal critics of the movie. As the film's failure became more apparent, Rogan's words echoed louder. "This is a disaster. What did Disney sign up for?" Rogan asked on his podcast. "It's like casting a dragon as the lead in Sleeping Beauty. Cool idea, until it starts burning everything down." Rogan's audience, which spans the political spectrum, seemed to agree with him. Fans on social media praised Rogan for calling out Disney and Zegler long before the film's release, and many shared his view that the movie's failure was inevitable. Rogan's criticism wasn't just about the film itself. It was about the cultural missteps that had led to its downfall. From Zegler's political rants to Disney's tone-deaf decisions, everything about the film seemed destined for disaster. By the time Snow White hit theaters, it had become more than just a movie. It had become a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with Disney's recent approach to storytelling. It wasn't just about a box office failure. It was about how the company had misread the cultural moment. Disney's brand, once synonymous with timeless magic and universal appeal, had been tarnished by a movie that no one wanted to see. And so, with the film losing over $100 million and Zegler's public image in tatters, it's clear that the Snow White remake will be remembered as one of Hollywood's biggest blunders. As for Joe Rogan, his warning proved prophetic. He saw it coming, and now, as the dust settles, it's hard not to look back at his words and think he told us so.